I've been a Man United fan my whole life. Not many have done it bigger than Beck's. Club, country, glitz, glamour. He's seen it all. A Hall of Fame playing career. Now he's building a Hall of Fame post-retirement career too. And in Inter Miami, we have the jewel in his crown. In 10 short years, the franchise has become a monster and is showing no signs of slowing down. The growth is massive, the numbers are fascinating, and the future is very bright. I'm Jordan. I built this platform to tell stories of this exact nature. Today, we're going to get into the lucrative business of Inter Miami, and we start with some crazy numbers. Let's just look at simple revenue. The graph to the side of me shows the year-on-year revenue of Inter Miami since they started playing football. As you can see, the numbers are growing up and to the right. What's crazy is, next year, Javier Asensi, the chief business officer of Inter Miami, predicts that Inter Miami's revenue might reach $200 million. If that was the case, that would put Inter Miami just outside the top 30 of all clubs globally in any league. Yes, an MLS team that's only 5 years old in the top 30 of revenue already. To give you more perspective, Nashville is another MLS team that started the same season that Inter Miami did. In 2022, Nashville's revenue was reported to be $46 million. So already Inter Miami are outstripping some of their MLS contemporaries who started at the same time as them. Those of you who are subscribers to my newsletter got this information quite a few weeks ago. I write a newsletter breaking down the business behind sport in the UK and the EU, and it's sent to your inbox every Monday at 11 a.m. UK time. I've done a few more detailed articles on David Beckham and his journey over in Inter Miami already. So if you like this and want to get more frequent information every week, please click the link in the description and subscribe below. Now, you ask yourself, how much is Inter Miami worth? Back to the video, and we talk about the valuation. As you can imagine, increased revenues brings a higher valuation. This graph to the side of me shows how the valuation of Inter Miami has changed since its inception. As you'll come on to find out, David Beckham and his consortium of investors paid $25 million for the rights to Inter Miami 10 years ago. At the time of their first game, the expansion fee was $100 million. Then, quite quickly after that, Sportico valued Inter Miami at $525 million. And in their latest round of MLS valuations, they said that Inter Miami is worth north of $1 billion already. I know valuations are pie in the sky, someone is making a model and plucking out a number, but it does show the growth and the rise of Inter Miami in a very short amount of time. Again, other franchises who started at a similar or even slightly earlier time are not valued as healthily as this. Next, we're going to look at some softer metrics. Some of you may think this has nothing to do with business, but I think it's important to show the brand value that Inter Miami is building. July the 7th, 2023 was an ordinary day until a few hours into it when Inter Miami announced the signing of a certain you-know-who. This graph to the side of me shows the social media followers on the three major platforms on the morning of July the 7th. 2 days later, after a certain announcement, this shows the numbers on those social platforms. I'm recording this video at the beginning of April. This shows you the numbers today. No other MLS franchise can come close. The final thing I want to cover in this topic is maybe the most important. When any sports league grows around the world, a consortium of investors has to pay to have their team added to that particular league. It happens in the NBA, it happens in the IPL, and it happens in the MLS too. As you guys may have seen in the Netflix documentary, when David Beckham moved from Manchester United to LA Galaxy, MLS franchises wanted him so much, they allowed David Beckham the option to get a MLS team later on in his career for $25 million. That doesn't sound like a game-changing deal at the time, but this has proved to be a masterstroke for David Beckham and his team. This graph to the side of me shows how the recent history of expansion fees in the MLS has changed over time. And we're going to start with teams from 2012. Montreal came in 2012, they paid $40 million. A couple years later, New York FC and Atlanta followed. You can already see the expansion fee for those franchises are a lot higher. Atlanta and Minnesota came next. 2018, LAFC. 2019 came Cincinnati. We're starting to go higher. 2020, 3 clubs came. Nashville, St. Louis, and Inter Miami. Look at the expansion fees for Nashville and St. Louis. Then look at Inter Miami's. We haven't finished there though. Sacramento came next. Charlotte have come after that. And the next MLS franchise that's going to join the league in 2025 is San Diego. The owners of San Diego's MLS franchise paid $500 million to add San Diego to the MLS. So look at this graph. One of those is not like the rest. David Beckham and his team got Inter Miami for a steal. Today, you have to pay 20 times more to get an MLS franchise in the league than what David Beckham and his team paid. And people are still doing it because they see the upside potential. It's fascinating. And you're starting to see why Becks is investing all his time in the building of Inter Miami. But there are a few caveats here. David Beckham and the team have had to spend a lot of money along the way. Stadiums aren't cheap, for example. So whilst those revenue numbers look good, they don't paint the whole picture. Similarly, You can't build stadiums with Instagram followers. The second caveat is David Beckham's not doing this himself. He does not own 100% of Miami. The ownership structure of Inter Miami has been quite an interesting journey also. In January 2018, the Miami United group formed a consortium and were awarded the rights to add an MLS team to the league. That consortium formed of 6 individuals: David Beckham, Simon Fuller, who some of you may know from the UK, Marcelo Clau, a Miami businessman, Masayoshi Son, big name in the tech space, Jorge and Jose Mas, also further Miami businessmen. Those were the initial investors in Inter Miami. Since then, the picture's changed a little bit. In May 2019, David Beckham bought out Simon Fuller. 2 years later, in July 2021, Inter Miami made an announcement that Jorge Mas, Jose Mas, and Bex had bought out Masayoshi Son and Marcelo Clau. At the same time, they announced the arrival of Ares, a private equity firm who had invested $150 million into the club. So then there were 4 parties: Mas, Beckham, and Ares. The CEO of Ares is called Michael Arrighetti, but we're going to call him Ares from now on. 2 years later, Ares added another $75 million into Inter Miami, bringing their total investment to $225 million. At this point, it's difficult to know who owns what percentage of the franchise, but those are the 4 parties involved at the time of recording this video. And they are the people who are strategically placed to take the franchise forward. And then we get to the future. Inter Miami almost didn't happen. Stadiums are very difficult to secure. They currently play their games in Fort Lauderdale in Florida, at a stadium with a capacity of 21,550 people. Bringing even more commercial revenue to the franchise. We'll get to commercial revenue in a second. What's interesting though, is part of the reason why Bex secured the club was because they promised to build a stadium in the future. That's going to be called Miami Freedom Park. And that's going to have an even bigger capacity than where they're playing now. The number of seats will increase to 25,000. They move into that stadium in the 2025 MLS season. And it's been unconfirmed at the moment if Chase will follow them to the new stadium. But they signed a multi-year agreement, so they probably will. The development of the stadium, though, is very interesting. It's being built on 131 acres of land. It includes 1 million square feet of office, retail, and commercial space. There will also be 750 hotel rooms built too. 23 acres of land will be for public football pitches. The remaining 58 acres will be a public park. There's a real estate play here too for the Inter Miami team. Of course, increasing the capacity of seats means more tickets being sold. Fans were outraged in the offseason when Inter Miami doubled the price of their season tickets, and yet they still sold them out in record time. More seats, more tickets, more revenue. Also, more commercial partners. Here is Inter Miami's website showing their list of partners right now. Javier Asensi, I mentioned him before. He is the chief business officer of Inter Miami. He's quite public when he does his interviews. He said that last season, the commercial revenue was $27 million for Inter Miami, and that is set to double for next season to over $50 million. Expect this list of partners to not only increase in number, but the deals to increase in size also. And of course, with the signings that Inter Miami have made, their on-pitch performance may look to increase too, and that will bring more prize money and an even bigger audience to the club in addition. The story has been fascinating so far. Inter Miami's challenge will be what happens if Messi no longer plays at the club when his contract expires at the end of 2025. Of course, they strategically lined up the fact that Messi's final year of his contract aligns with the first year of the new stadium. Messi could re-sign, Messi could choose to leave. It's entirely up to him. But will Inter Miami be able to maintain the commercial partners, the season tickets, the revenue trajectory post Messi leaving the club? I think so. The pulling power of the weather in Miami, the tax in Miami, and David Beckham as an owner will help attract other stars, maybe not to the scope of Lionel Messi, but others will follow behind him. He could re-sign and extend for another 2 or 3 years and play into his early 40s too, which I'm sure will help maintain this level of growth. But regardless, the story so far has been amazing. David Beckham and the team have done a phenomenal job, and I'm very excited to see where a local lad from Preston takes it from here. I mentioned before, I've been a Man United fan my entire life. My favourite ever Beckham goal was against Tottenham. In fact, here it is.
Giggs. Solskjaer back for Giggs, well, he lets it run for Beckham. Oh!
Shaped to go far post, pinged it near post, started doing this as a celebration.
Beautiful goal.
That was my favourite era of David Beckham as a player. But this is my favourite era of David Beckham now. The kid born in Leytonstone is doing it big, but so too is a kid born in Stevenage. If you liked videos of this nature, click here to watch a video of Lewis Hamilton's full business endeavours. Maybe just even more interesting than Beck's. I'm Jordan. Thank you for watching.